You ready? You ready? You ready for this? You ready? Okay. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday. With the weather warming up, we thought we would take it outside and look at some AT for in the garden, and also to care for our pets. Now, I have some very special guests with me today that I'm really excited about, as you can tell. I would like to welcome Brooke.
Thanks.
Hello.
Thanks
And lovely to have you. And her little doggo, Marley. Thank you both so much for coming.
No problem.
Now, Brooke, do you mind me asking what type of dog Marley is?
Marley is a Maltese.
Yep, beautiful. And how old is this little guy?
He'll be 2 next week.
Yep, and where did you get his bow from?
Got it from the reject shop.
Sorry, it's really cute. Now, we could sit here all day and give Marley cuddles and talk about Marley all day, but we do have some questions that have come through from our app chatters, so we'd better get on to answering those. Now, our first question is from Sonia. Now, Sonia asks, I enjoy taking my dog for a walk, but I have problems with picking up his mess after he's gone. Is there anything out there that can make it easier? Now, really good question, Sonia. Thanks so much for sending it through. It's a really common smelly problem that pet owners have. And I wonder if, Brooke, do you have any advice?
I sure do. I use a poop scooper that's got a long handle.
Yep.
And it's just behind me here.
Yep. So with that long handle,
Yep.
does that help so you're not bending down
That's
as much?
correct, yeah, because the ground's just here, so it's quite easy.
Yeah.
No mess, no touching, no ickiness, which is really helpful.
Exactly. So looking at your different options, Brooke highlighted, having something that's your long handle so you're not bending down or needing to reach as much. And I guess something else you might want to be looking at is portability. If you are going on the W word, and I won't say it because we might get really excited, you might want something that's a little bit more portable. So there are some that can actually fold, whereas if you're at home, you might be looking at maybe your rake and your brush option. Now, with many of the different contraptions, now Brooke, I saw yours and it looked like a spring-loaded contraption.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's pretty easy to use, or does it require a bit of strength?
No, it's pretty lightweight. It's really, really easy to use.
Yep, perfect. And I think that would be what you're looking at if it is that you experience some strength difficulties. That spring-loaded option could be a better way to go.
Yep.
Alternatively, you can get actually some long-handled catchers. I'm not too sure if you've seen what's called, I think it's the poop stick, something along those lines. And basically, it's actually a long-handled stick with a bag on the end. And depending on the person, they might want to hold it in position while the doggo does its business. And then you can clean up that way. So lots of different options, and you can get them from your generic pet suppliers. And I think the one that you've got there, I've seen quite a similar one at Target. Is that right, Marley? Yes. Now, Marley, we have another question. Our next question is from Kylie. Now, Kylie says, my dog loves to play fetch, but he hasn't quite grasped the concept of placing the ball in my lap and has a habit of dropping it at my feet. Is there anything that can help me with then picking it up? So, Brooke, does Marley like to play fetch, and how does that go with getting the ball?
He sure does. And to answer Kylie's question, he doesn't bring the ball back to me. So I have to make sure I've got something on a long reach, which is really, really helpful. He has all the time in the world for a bit of fetch, but hasn't quite grasped the concept of return the ball to mum.
Yes, not yes yet.
So we've got this ball and this just places in there.
Yep.
And so, I'll take the ball out, but it's just a light tap. You don't have to move it, and the ball will go out.
Okay, yeah.
And it's a lot easier to pick up on the ground.
Perfect. So like Brooke mentioned, you've got your long-handled options that can help with picking up the ball. I'm not too sure if you already use one, but there are things like your long-handled reaches. Now, they can come in all different lengths depending if the person is standing or sitting, and they also have different handles, so depends what works for the person in terms of their hand dexterity. So something like this potentially could also be a good option. Now, there are lots of different toys, so if someone may experience some visual difficulties, they may be looking at toys that are audible or have higher contrast with their colour. You heard me say toys. So that could be a good option for people. There are also toys like your chew and tug toys. Many of them are quite big on the handle, so that might help to someone who might have difficulty with their hand dexterity to get a good hold and enjoy that play with their doggo. Alternatively, you can get some automated toys, so that again encourages you more independent play.
And also with the independent play, there's the ball return system that you've got, so that's really helpful. The dog pops the ball in the little toy, and then the ball shoots out, and then the dog chases it and then returns it back to
Marley wants mum. Sorry. There we go. Now we're happy.
Yes.
Okay. I had my time. I had my moment of shine. Okay, so our next question is from Karen. And Karen asks, what AT is out there to aid with dog grooming? Thanks very much for the question, Karen. Having the right grooming equipment is hugely important, because I do find that dog hair and fur becomes a part of your lifestyle after a period of time. So you may want to be looking at, when you're grooming your animal, having them at the right height. I know for my dog, she's quite big, so she's already at the right height if I'm sitting down. Alternatively, if you have a small doggo, maybe you might be wanting to position the dog on a table so it's at the right height for yourself. There's lots of different grooming equipment, so you can get your mitts. That allows you to do your whole hand grooming, so you're not doing any of your fine motor movements. You can also get your bigger handled brushes, that might help. Alternatively, you can get things like this one here, and it's a universal cuff, so you can attach lots of different things to it. It does come in different sizes, so this is slightly big for the lint roller here, and I think a lint roller is a must-have for a lot of dog owners. But the idea behind it is, again, you ready, Marley? You watching? It gives you a cuff, okay? So it can help with holding the actual item itself. All right, so you're not doing that sustained grip. All right. But if you do have a bit of a wiggler, a little wiggler dog, you might be looking at having your dog groomed and approaching any of those grooming services. Brooke, what do you do to keep Marley so well groomed?
Because, as everyone can see, Marley is so fidgety.
Yes.
We tend to get him groomed at Pet Barn once every 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
And they're really, really good with him. I go in, I tell them what I want them to do to him. I also find with me, with my hands, I can't really brush him that well, so I tend to sort of try and keep him as short as possible. Yep. So the brush doesn't get caught in his fur too often. But yeah, once every 6 weeks we'll get him groomed.
Sorry, I'm ready for cuddles now. Yes. All right. So Marley, let's ask the next question from Bill. So Bill asks, I love to take my dog for a walk, but it can be a little bit challenging at times trying to hold the dog lead and propel my manual wheelchair safely. Do we have any advice? Brooke, what do you find works for yourself when you take Marley out for the W word?
I have to use and highly recommend a retractable dog lead.
Yeah.
So it also helps with bigger dogs as well. You've got a bit of a leeway as to how long and what length. Normally Marley takes me for a walk, so this allows me to lock it in place.
Yep. So you can get the right length.
The right length.
Yep.
Yeah. So that way, when it comes to crossing the road, you can shorten the lead a little bit.
Yep.
And you're able to cross the road safely.
And do you find with yourself when you're self-propelling, do you need to position the lead anywhere? Do you attach it to the wheelchair at all, or do you find it's okay to hold in the hand?
I work best with using my left side. I've got better hand dexterity in my left than my right, so Marley always has to go to the left side of me.
Yes.
So I will just attach the wheelchair, the lead to my wheelchair cup holder, but I'll wrap it around so it's nice and safe. But yeah,
perfect.
That's what we do.
Definitely. And I think Brooke highlights so many good points. First, looking at your leash length. So that it's, you're not having so much actual lead that the dog and also your wheels can get stuck in. I would want to avoid actually wrapping the lead around your hand, because again, if the dog gets a little bit excited, you don't want it to pull and sustain a hand injury there. So rather than wrapping the lead around your hand, you might actually be bunching it up in your hand instead, so then you've got that quick release option if you need to. Another option is there's lots of different lead attachments, so you can be looking at gloves that can attach your lead, and potentially some of the implications of that is it could impact on then your braking of the wheelchair.
Definitely.
Yep. So then an alternative, if you find that that is the case, you might be looking at a wrist attachment for your lead instead. If that's maybe not the best option for you, you could be looking at customized mounting solutions. So you can even get bike attachments for your wheelchair, or more customized options that can then attach the lead that way. With any of the attachments though, you're probably going to want to have a quick release option, so that
Definitely.
if your dog gets a little bit excited,
You don't
you're
get
not
tipped forward.
exactly right. Yeah. So a few of different options there. Now, our next question is from Kerry, and Kerry said, I would really appreciate any tips on training a pet to get through a doggy door when you're in a wheelchair and the wheels get in the way when you try to bend down. Apparently, Dr. Harry has suggested enticing your doggo with some treats, but that doesn't seem to work at the moment. So, to be honest with you, Kerry, I don't think I'm going to be able to answer this question any better than what Dr. Harry has already. But I am familiar that, you're well known to the ACCHAT team, and we do look forward to maybe seeing a contraption like a long-handled aid or reacher with maybe some treats on the end. And maybe that could be a form of training. But we will watch that space to see what it is that you come up with. But thanks for the question. Now, let's move right on to gardening. Now, we've had a few questions come through from our ACCHATers. Brooke, do you have any questions about gardening from the ACCHATers?
Yes, Nicole, I've got a question here from Debbie, who is having some mobility issues getting up and down from the garden, and would like to know about raised garden beds.
Perfect. So what are you using at the moment, Brooke?
I've got a raised garden bed in the garden that I use, a lot similar to this aluminium one behind us.
Mm-hmm.
They can come in customizable lengths and sizes.
Yeah.
So my garden bed's probably about yay height, so wheelchair height, which is a lot safely for me to use. So I've got a variety of plants in the garden bed, and I'm able to reach.
Yep. And what about managing the Australian heat? Because I know with this material it can be a bit tricky. So have you got any solutions there?
Yes, I actually use a pool noodle. Who would have thought?
Very innovative.
Putting a pool noodle just around the edges of the garden bed, and that way I can get a lean towards the garden bed without taking the skin off my
your knees.
Yeah,
perfect. And I think Brooke really did say it all with having your garden bed at the right height, so then you're not having to reach as much. Alternatively, you could be looking at big pot plants, again at the right height, or maybe dangling pot plants as well. You've also got your vertical gardens. I know with my herb garden, I've actually got it hanging on the fence, so I'm actually not doing any bending at all. So that could be a nice option. The other thing is, if you are wanting to get down to the ground and do weeding or whatever that might look like, but find it tricky to then stand from that kneeling position, you could be looking at something like a garden kneeler, one that I'm sitting on, because it also can convert to a seat. So there are many combo options, something that's available from Bunnings, but definitely a few different solutions out there that could maybe work. Cool. So our next question is from Barry, and Barry said, I have spent a lot of time creating a nice garden and have a nice sprinkler system in place, but I can no longer reach the water tap due to the decline in mobility. What can you suggest? Any thoughts, Brooke?
Yes, there are plenty of app-controlled garden watering systems out there. So just from your smartphone, which is really, really handy, you can basically do it from anywhere in the home. You can turn on the garden tap and away you go.
Perfect. So really looking at your smart irrigation systems and connecting them to either, you know, an iOS device like an iPhone or an iPad, and then you can control when it is that the watering's occurring, daily, timely, all of that, and you could be remotely in programming in to do that. Alternatively, you could be looking at a lower tech solution such as your tap timers, and just pre-programming them in. All right.
And I also use a vertical garden bed that I can maneuver around the house, around the garden.
Yes.
So if it's too sunny and I find the plants are needing a little bit of shade, I can maneuver it around the backyard, and it also waters itself. It's got a built-in irrigation system as well.
Perfect. So looking at something built-in and something mobile, so you can move it to those sunny and shade spots. Something I probably need to look into because my coriander is not doing too well. Yep. All right, so let's have a look at our next question. We've got Karen, who's asked, any suggestions on devices that can help with weeding from a wheelchair? Awesome question. Thank you, Karen. So when looking at any of your garden tools and your garden accessories, you might want to be looking at starting with your lightweight options, just because again they're easier to lift, easy to manipulate. With looking at your tool handles, you can get some options that are thicker, some that can also have a bit more resistance. So some of the garden tools have your metal handles. They can actually be, you know, quite hard to get, you know, a good grip on. So looking at your bicycle tape to increase that resistance, that could work. You may also be wanting the full combo, so something with an adapted handle. So you can see this has your right angled handle, so if someone does experience any difficulties or discomfort with their wrist movement, that allows it to stay in that neutral position. It's got your long component to it, and many of them can come in different lengths as well, and then with a different attachment depending on what it is that you're doing. So you can get long handled weeders as well. You can get push and pull weeders, so that you're only just applying that pressure and the mechanism at the bottom of the device actually rips it out themselves once that pressure has been applied. So again, you can get a lot of those options from your generic garden stores. It's just kind of seeing what works for you and keeping in mind those pointers. So your weight options, your tool handle, and also the length, and giving it a go, giving it a bit of a try. Yep. Any other suggestions, Brooke?
Yes, I would always suggest using garden gloves.
They're very pretty.
They also, these are my garden gloves from home.
Yeah.
Number one, you don't burn your hands holding the equipment in the garden. Mm-hmm. And number two, you don't get messy, dirty hands.
No.
So I would always suggest safety first. Garden gloves.
Garden gloves, perfect. And I guess with having garden gloves and that better grip, then you actually, you know, have a bit more options with the garden tools that you're using. So if they are a metal handle, you're getting a better grip from the actual glove and not needing to apply anything to the handle. So awesome suggestion, Brooke. Well, that was a lot of fun, and we should get Marley back. Hey, buddy. Come on, buddy. Here we go. Yeah. So we answered a lot of questions, but if there's any more, feel free to post them below. We'll do our best to answer them. We may even do another Tech Tuesday. I would like to thank Brooke and Marley for coming along and answering all of our AT questions.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure. We look forward to maybe doing this again sometime.
Definitely.
Thanks, guys. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.